Hey everybody, I haven't done a Periscope in a while, and I want to do one tonight for a very special reason, which is that we just got done recording an episode with Shuja Hager that is a comprehensive sort of examination of the entire stupid Jordan Peterson phenomenon that I hope will be the last word that we have to say about his tedious ass. But after we ended the show, I thought that there were a few things I kind of forgot to say that I need to kind of express to really kind of put a fucking nail in the coffin and move on. Because while we had some good critiques, I think, of the motherfucker, one thing we didn't do was answer the real seminal question. Okay, if he's full of shit, and one of the reasons he's such a poor thinker is filling this void is because the lack of explanations that are different than what he's putting out, then what is the alternative? What's the alternative to his particular brand of moonshine? And I didn't really get to it on the show, so I wanted to put it out here right now. Hopefully this can get sent around and people can listen to it if they want to try to have one of their Peterson fans get moving away from his bullshit. And so I just wanted to say, what is the answer to, well, what do you propose as the alternative? What is the alternative to the Peterson snake oil? And I think we address that by first noting that there's a fundamental delusion at the base of the entire project he's doing, and the minds of all of the people who are fans of his. Because what happens is that he is popular because he flatters the worldview of kids who grew up in the isolation and cut off mental world of postmodern America, of exurban, internet-connected American youth. And that is this idea of the individual as the primal and only locus of meaning in the world. That you as an individual are the sum total of the world. And that you have to negotiate the world as this separate being amongst a functionally unknowable and certainly untrustworthy others. And that's really what he's talking about when he's talking about order and chaos. Yes, it's a weird misogynistic thing where he's talking about order is the masculine masculine self and chaos is feminine or whatever. But what he's really doing is he's just recapitulating Lacan's mirror stage of childhood development, when you realize that you can be seen from the outside, when you realize that there's a subjective world, you, and then an objective world outside of you. And this chaos-order dichotomy he talks about is just that. At base, it's order is the self, and chaos is all outside of the self that cannot be controlled. And of course, that is the source of fear and anxiety, and it must be fought. Right in the title of his book, Fight the Chaos. Fight the exterior. Fight everyone else, because they are fundamentally unknowable. They can't have the same objectives as you. You have to express yourself fully on your own terms. No one else can interfere with that. And it's sort of funny in a lot of ways that he marshals this Jungian concept to promote this hyper-individualism, because there's something absurd about someone who posits that there is a collective consciousness that we all share a part of, but also we are totally defined as individuals. Even though he's basically saying that your mind is not fully your own, that it is inherited from generations before you and shared by everyone around you, that somehow you are still a irreducible monad who has to navigate the world as an individual. There's a fundamental conflict there that he doesn't even seem to be aware of. So that is how he deals with the anxiety and tensions of the subjective-objective relationship, which you could almost look at as a dialectic, maybe, that needs to be resolved in a synthesis, maybe a little bit. If that's the case, his prescription of hyper-individualism and cultivating the self and basically not giving up on any idea of influencing the world beyond yourself, fully moving inward, that is doomed. And more than that, it is brutally sterile. You are choosing to imprison yourself fully in the confines of a closed loop of consciousness that basically by definition cannot really change or grow or catalyze anything without outside influence. So the way to defeat this mindset is to say the way forward, the way to find meaning, which is what this is really all about. All these people lost in a postmodern morass of vapid consumer culture and personal capitalist enterprise. The way to make that meaningful is to transcend it by reaching out to, not to fight the other, the chaos, but to find a common cooperative relationship with it, to find similarities across consciousnesses, as scary as that is. That is where you can actually change the world around you, which you have to do, because the things that are generating this unhappiness that he preys on are material things. It is a material base of economic relationships that are generating this. They cannot be changed by cleaning a room or making any individual choice. They can only be changed by collective action. And the way to do that is to unite around common experiences, the exploitation and alienation of capitalism and commodity. Those things are what unite us, and which we can come together across the span of no ability to this scary other, and unite along those axes. And that gives us not only the sense of strength and power and meaning that comes from a true knowledge that you can change the world and your circumstances, but also enlivens your brain. I mean, to think about it. Do you feel more alive? Do you feel more wired? Do you feel more creative? Do you feel more open? Do you feel like you are building and living more when you are by yourself with that endless monologue of self that can only reference itself, can only reference its own experiences, can only reference its own memories, or sharing across consciousness to others who can bring you perspectives and ideas and thoughts and images and that you could never have thought of otherwise. And that's what builds meaning. What builds meaning is engaging with another and then coming to solidarity and a sense of shared purpose, shared plight, shared vision, and trying to build towards it in the real world. That is the only thing that has promise. The individual shit, the cultivate your garden, the fucking faux stoic mystic gibberish will only ever provide transient sense of satisfaction. Because at the end of the day, you're just driving yourself mad by the mundane prattle of a singular stream of consciousness that can't be broken out of. That is the order. And he even talks about it in those senses. The trod path, the mapped territory, the known world. But if you only care and interact with the known world, if you keep the chaos at arm's length always, fight it or tame it or slay it or view it as an intrusion that has to be suppressed, then you're never going to be able to make any meaning that can transcend self-help slogans. Well, here's another addendum, the postmodern conspiracy thing. That is basically anybody who wants to point to a degradation of people's material standing in the West and rates of happiness and cohesion, sense of purpose, blah, 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 has to contend with why. They have to have a mechanism. And the most obvious mechanism, the most persuasive mechanism, the mechanism right out in the open, is that capitalism has become more brutal and alienating as technology has increased and as rates of profit have dropped. But they can't say that because it undermines their entire world and it necessitates the kind of collective action and change that they don't want. So they need a scapegoat. So it has to be a conspiracy theory. That's why fascism arose. Every fucking working stiff in Europe by the Great Depression was on to the con of capital. They saw the exploitation in front of them every day. The only way to redirect any of that popular anger was to find someone responsible for it, not operating out of the logic of capitalism, but operating out of an occult logic of a secret group with nefarious designs who want to destroy the world for uncertain reasons. Reasons that wouldn't really make sense to a regular person, but which make sense to them because they're other. They're Jews or they're postmodernists or whatever. And then they have to claim that culture trumps economy completely and that these people claimed culture and by taking over culture made everything bad. Mechanism is absurd. You can't observe, and there's nothing provable about it. You can't see the results of it by looking at data. If you want to be a fucking logic and reason and facts guy, whereas the fucking case against capitalism is airtight. But they can't go there, so they have to fucking stir up these. I mean, cultural Marxism started it. His neo-Marxism is just the same bullshit. And it's the only way to make sense of a world that has stopped working for people that doesn't indict capitalism.